yahrzeit of the Or Chaim HaKadosh, Rav Chaim ben Attar, who was buried on Mount of Olives. A very special tzaddik, a very special day, and a special time also, perpetuous for getting prayers answered, also because it falls on the 15th of the month. The Arizal says that the best time to be able to pray at graves of tzaddikim are at the beginning of the month, when the moon begins to grow at the end, in other words right before that stage, or on the 15th. And it's amazing, not a coincidence, that his yahrzeit of the Rav Chaim ben Attar falls on that day, on the 15th of Tammuz. And he was a very exceptional tzaddik. The Baal Shem Tov said about him that he is the big light. And the Baal Shem Tov tried his best to make it to the Holy Land, because they knew if they would meet together, they would have been able to bring Mashiach, if they would have met together. And they didn't make it. The Baal Shem Tov had tremendous obstacles in coming to the Holy Land. He didn't make it. And the Baal Shem, and the Or Chaim passed away at a very young age, at age 48. Passed away very young. And he left behind a very powerful impression. Until today, people learn his commentary on the Chumash. After Rashi, it's one of the biggest classics on the Chumash is the Or Chaim HaKadosh. Very special. So, B'ezrat Hashem, we'll have some good lights this year with that yahrzeit. Some insights now. Insights on Chukat, and to continue a little of what we've been speaking about in the past few weeks, B'ezrat Hashem. This amazing concept of a teacher, a leader, who's compassionate and leaving behind what's called sons and students. And we explained last week that there is the hasagot, the contemplation, the level of awareness of a disciple and the level of awareness of a son. And just to recap, a son is someone who's born into it. He's born in a family. It can be the son of a tzaddik, for example. So in a way he has an advantage in that he's a son. But it's not an advantage if he's a son and he's wicked. The advantage is to be a son and also a student. Because the main thing Rabbi Nachman teaches is that the world should be occupied by human beings. And the definition of a human being is someone who has da'at, knowledge. And true knowledge is knowledge of Hashem. Awareness that there's a creator, there's a purpose in this world, and what is the makeup of this creation in line and new with Hashem in that perspective. That's true da'at. To perceive and to strive to higher perceptions of godly awareness. That's what's called true da'at. And the purpose of this world, when we have a commandment to be fruitful and multiply, it's not just a physical fruitful multiply, that there should be a continuity of mankind, but there should be a continuity of mankind itself. Mankind meaning human beings, and not animals in the shape of human beings. In other words, they should have da'at, understanding, knowledge, true knowledge. That's the goal. So a tzaddik and every person has to see to it that he leaves something behind. And not just physical children, but to leave behind students, to leave behind his da'at. Because when a person leaves behind his da'at, even if he passes away, it's considered as if he's still in this world. He's still here. That's why it's so important to speak to people, not to be isolated, not to be just an intellectual Jew for oneself, to take all your knowledge and just keep it to yourself. The goal rather is to spread what you know, what you receive, what you're understanding, and to give to others. Because each person has levels of awareness that another Jew doesn't have. And so in that case, I could be his teacher in one area of life, and he can be my teacher also in another area of life. It's the idea of what says, Mikablin din min din, that each one receives from the other. This is very important. This ensures the continuity of da'at in the world, that I leave behind something. And what's amazing about that is that even if you read items in a book, still it doesn't match when you hear that same item from the mouth of a friend. If you take a look at your life, of yourself in life, you remember better what you heard from friends than what you read in books. In other words, you heard the same idea from somebody and you've seen it in a book. What sticks with you 10 years later, 20 years later, 30 years later? I remember my grandmother used to say this, or my friend, or my father, or my teenage schoolmate. I remember them telling you this and this and that, even though you learned it in a book, but it's etched in your memory from what you heard from actually people. That's why it's so important to talk, to have dialogue, and not just to be a person of the book, but to relate and give over so that way it stays with people. But the trick to that, to have that happen, is that a person has to have what's called Yirat Shamayim. Because the Gemara says, whoever has Yirat Shamayim, Dvarav Nishmayim, whoever has fear of heaven, his words are heard. People accept what he has to say. Because it's coming out from a sincere heart, from someone who has the fear of heaven. So the words come out like lightning, and they resonate with a person. They don't go in one ear and go out the next ear, but they stay with a person because the person giving it over is speaking sincerely. He's speaking from the attitude, from the perspective of Yirat Shamayim, fear of heaven. So this is something very important, to leave behind disciples, students. So the ben, a son, is a higher level of a disciple, and an actual disciple who's not my son is also a disciple and also a son. Because the Gemara says, whoever teaches his fellow Jew's son Torah, it's as if he gave birth to him, it's as if he created him. Why? Because until now, until he learned that, he wasn't considered a human being. He earned his term of being a human being once he received that. So if I, as a teacher, am responsible for teaching my fellow Jew that, my neighbor's son, I teach him Torah and give him that, so I now gave him the term human. He's now a human being because of the dot that I infused in him. Even though the father physically created him, fine, but the main father of a person is the one who gave him dot. That's why it's so important to teach, to give over, to share what you have with other people. But in order that it should resonate and not disappear, so there should be a remembrance, a zikaron, something left from a person. The person has to make sure he has Yirat Shamayim, that his words resonate. Fine. So this is what we spoke about, the idea of a disciple and also a ben. Now, there's another big difference between a disciple and a ben. Besides the physical being of a student and a son, there's also a category of just a student and a son. What's the category? A student is someone who came from the outside and they're searching, he's coming in. For example, Yehoshua, even though his father was Nun, let's say, he chose to become a disciple of Moshe. And he bent himself to become a disciple of Moshe because he felt he had nothing and he was looking. As opposed to a son who's born in the house and everything, he receives on a more respectable level the wisdom of the father. But a disciple is coming from outside totally, from the dirt, from the lowest level, to seek out and to learn Torah from others, that they should receive. And he's willing to bend himself, which is humility, in order to receive. So the idea of a disciple corresponds to the category of those who are called dwellers of the dust, shochne afar. And the ben, someone who's born into it, let's say, he's in the family, he has lineage and everything, and also he's learned it, he's on a higher level. He's considered Dari Mala. So these are categories, people who are high and people who are low. Now the thing is, that a person is high, recognizes that he's high, he'll stop his pursuit of growing. When a person sees that everything's going great, and there's light, cameras, action, everything's beautiful in life, fine and dandy, he's not going to continue his pursuit to gain more knowledge. Because again, because Hashem is called the Infinite One, Ein Sof, that means there's endless levels of knowledge of Hashem. Just like Hashem is unlimited, it's endless, there's no end to Hashem's greatness and levels of perceptions of Hashem, so too Da'at itself, the word Da'at, knowledge, has endless levels, and it's our goal to be constantly on the run, on the go, reaching higher levels of perception. That's why we were created, to reveal and to delve into, to perceive higher, endless levels of Da'at, the maximum we can do until we leave this world. That's our goal, of reaching higher levels of Da'at. So now, the person who's up there, the category of a son, if now he sees the results of his investment of being at a high level, right? And he sees the light, what's it called? The light which results from his devotions, so he's going to slack. He's going to need to slack in his pursuit because he sees everything is great, it's amazing and everything. So he's going to stop. So what do we have to do in order to push him to go forward? To give him a major dose of darkness, to show the people who are high what's called ma. What have you accomplished? You're still very far. You're still in the darkness. Like the Tikkun Zohar says, ma chamita, ma pishpashta. I hope B'ezrat Hashem, there's only good news, B'ezrat Hashem, nothing severe. What have you accomplished? Ma chamita, what have you seen? What have you reached? That is in order to push a person to go forward. Because if he, again, is in the light, he's not going to go forward. So we give him darkness specifically, so he should see that he still has a long way to go. that he's still very far from Hashem. Because the real truth is we're always far from Hashem. Hashem is endless. No matter what level you reach, you're still far from Hashem. So to show that realization is what's needed to give him that boost, what's called yirah, fear of heaven, to push him to go forward. We give him the opposite of his level in order to push him forward, because he's going to stop. And the opposite is also true. People who are very far from Hashem, very far, that if now you give them just one word of rebuke, look how low you are, look how far you are, you're still in the earth, you haven't even moved and everything. When you talk like that to such a person, they're going to drop everything. Forget it then. That's it, I'm finished. You can take your Torah, you can take your Judaism, you can do whatever you want with it, it's not for me. Chas v'shalom. So what has to be shown to the people who are far? That Melo chol haaretz kevodo. They see the glory of Hashem filling the world. They see it. Even though according to their actions, they're still in the darkness, they're still very far, they're beginning down to earth, still to push them to go forward, they have to be shown that there's a value in their little bit of devotions and their little bit of good points that they have in them. There's a value in it, and it generates tremendous light. This in order that they should go on, to give them yirat shamayim, to give them that boost of fear of heaven. So we give to two types of people the opposite dosage to give them that push to go forward. For the people who are high, the big tzaddikim, the big shots and everything, they're shown darkness. They're given a slap in the face to show that they're still very far, and that is in order to push them to go forward. They're at a level that they take the slap properly, they take the darkness properly, they're firmly rooted in their devotions, that they're not going to fall off totally because of the darkness, because they're solid. It's going to just the opposite, it's going to push them forward. Whereas the people who are low, if you give that type of darkness, they're going to fall totally. So the opposite people who are very far, they're given the light of the people on the high level. It's like a switch. We give them the light generated from the people who are very high. We give the people who are low that light in order to push them to go forward, that Hashem is next to them, Hashem is with them, and there's hope, and just keep on going, and you'll make it. So now, once this happens, so now you have both types of people moving forward, accelerating now. You have the people who are high because of the darkness, it pushes them as an incentive to go forward, and the people who are low, who are in darkness, they're given this light. Also, they're in a dark situation, but they're given light. This is their incentive to go forward. Even after going forward, they still need a bit of the opposite in order to give them breaks. Because in Judaism, accelerating too much is never good. You need what's called vessels to handle the light. The light in Judaism is very intense, that for every step I go forward, I have to make sure I have the power to handle it. So in Judaism, we go step by step. To ensure that a person goes step by step, he's given like a blockage to keep him from going too much forward. So now, the people who are up there, who are given this dosage of darkness in order to give them the incentive to go forward, once they start accelerating, in order to keep them balanced, they're given again a drop of the light of their level to show them the light of their accomplishment, but at a level that they can handle it. Again, that's like the analogy of the guy who's crossing the tightrope, you know, the guy who's crossing on the rope, and the audience is clapping their hands, right? If he just for 1 second loses concentration, looks at the audience clapping at him and hooray, he's going to fall. So he has to make sure that he takes a little bit of consideration. He hears the noise, but he's focusing on walking on the tightrope, so he doesn't fall. So that's that guy. He's trying to accelerate in his spirituality, and he's given a little bit of the light again in order to ensure that there's yirat shamayim. Because even the people who are super high, if it's only darkness, they're going to drop it also eventually. So they need to have a balance of a little bit of light again to keep them going. So there's a joining of a light, a recognition and a revelation that Hashem's presence fills the world. They feel the godliness generated from their mitzvot and Torah study and their prayer and their emunah and all their good deeds. They feel a little bit of the energy generated by that, but in the main it's a darkness in order to keep them going. And the people who are low, the opposite. The people who are low, it's a lot of light, a lot of encouragement, but because they might accelerate too much, so they're given also a little bit of darkness. Hey, take it easy, step by step. Don't accelerate too much because you're going to crash. A little bit. So again, it's an admixture of a little bit of darkness with a lot of light. Yes, a lot of chizuk, a lot of encouragement, a lot of idud, what's called in Hebrew, a lot of that Hashem is with you, Hashem loves you, words of encouragement, words of love and everything. Yes, that's the main. But also there's a little bit of a slap in the face, a little bit of darkness, a little bit of embarrassment insults, difficulties, obstacles, all that we coin as darkness, in order to make a balance that it shouldn't be mitbatel. It shouldn't be, if it's only light, then they're going to reach a level when they're accelerating that they're going to stop also. So we have to have this balance. Okay. So now with this in mind, we'll get to the next point. Sorry, before we go into the parsha. So now, a Jew now has, based on this, two levels of awareness. We have what's called a makif and what's called pnimi. To explain, pnimi is levels of intellect, of understanding, which have been already internalized inside of me. Makif is what's called a level of intellect which is still beyond me, and it's surrounding me. It's waiting to enter into me. And our job in life is to transform as much as possible every makif, because there's endless levels of intellect which are beyond me. It's like an onion ring. There's one ring, there's another one. In other words, endless levels of these makifim surrounding me, waiting to be internalized. But it's up to me. Number one, that I internalize what has to be internalized properly. And number two, I don't rush. I don't try to grab too much. Because if I grab too much, I want to grab one, and before it has time to become digested and invested within me, I'm already after the next level. It's dangerous. I won't have the ability to receive properly these higher levels of intellect, and I'll crash. So we have what's called the pnimi and makif. So now in context of the Talmud, the disciple, the person who's in the darkness, and you're giving him light. The light that he has, that he's experiencing, that he feels the presence of Hashem in the world. For example, a typical classic example is a Baal Tshuva at the beginning of his Tshuva process. Every Baal Tshuva, when they begin, they have a tremendous light. They start crying, they hit their first Shabbos, and their Shlomo Karlbach Minyan, and the Friday night davening, and the cholent, the soul food. They start flipping out, oh my God, I'm on cloud 9, all these big levels of light, and it's undeserved. They didn't do anything yet to deserve this gift. It's a gift. We're giving him a light above his level in order to encourage him, yes, pursue Hashem, yes, pursue Torah, it's worth it, it's a good investment, pursue coming to Eretz Yisrael, pursue experiencing what it's like to be by the Kotel on a Friday night, or to feel a Kedusha, experience Shabbos in Yerushalayim, etc. So this push and the feeling, the emotional stir-up that they have is giving them the light of the people who are up above, because they're in the earth, they don't deserve this level yet, they haven't done yet anything to earn it, based on their deeds, right? So they're given a big light, so that they should consider Judaism. They should consider that it's worth it. Hashem loves me, and Hashem wants me. He's calling me back to come back to my tradition, my Judaism, and everything. It's worth it. Fine. So this is internalized. This light and this level of awareness that Hashem wants me. He's calling me, and I feel it, and I feel the push now and the pull, and I'm beginning to understand what I'm learning. I'm beginning to understand concepts in life and in Judaism. I'm going to classes, going to Isha Torah, going to the Arachim, going to whatever, and things are coming in, and I'm absorbing and understanding it. That's called pnimi. But then, like we said, you have to hit a blockage in order that he should do things at a normal level. He shouldn't go fast. Because he has to, that's how Hashem created the world. Vayerev, Vayiboker. There was night, and then there was day. If Hashem wanted to, he could create just day. But he made life that there's a day, there's a night first, and there's a day. So you need a break. First you have to have a darkness in life, and then there's a light. And again, the next day there's darkness and light, and then the next day darkness and light. That's how Hashem created the world. He wants people to go on a level that's at level by level, not to jump in too fast, because that'll be a crash. That's the whole idea of creation, by the way. The creation was, in the beginning, that when Hashem first created the world, He put too much light into the creation, and there's what's called in the Kabbalah, there was what's called the shattering of the vessels, Shveret HaKelim, where the world, the sparks of holiness and that Hashem invested in the world just shattered, because the vessels couldn't contain this light, so there was a shattering. And then, the second time, when Adam was created and Eve, their work was to rectify collecting the sparks from the first shattering. It's a whole thing in the Kabbalah. You can see Rai Kaplan in his amazing book, Inner Space. He goes into it very deeply, very carefully to explain this idea of the shattering of the vessels. We won't go into it right now. It's not a Kabbalah class, etc. In any event, this is how Hashem designed the world. So going back to the Baal Tshuva, the guy who's starting, who wants to become a disciple, he wants to be a Talmud. He wants to be, I want to learn. I want to learn about Judaism, I want to learn about my roots, I want to know what's out there for me. So he's internalizing, and they're giving it to him. But then he reaches what's called a makif. It's the stop. And the trick is, since until now, everything was understandable. They opened the gates, as if they opened the gates of God for me, the wisdom for me. I understood A, I passed it. B, I passed it. C, D. All of a sudden when I reach F, whoa, I reached something that I can't understand. What's the test now? Am I going to actually stop and accept that I don't understand it, and I have to work on myself until I'm ready that what's makif, what's circling me, this level of intellect which is beyond me, will become internalized, and I'll wait, I'll take the break? Or will I get caught up in the intellectual excitement and pursuit that I had until now and force my way? No, I want to understand this also. This makif, which is beyond my level of rationale and requires emunah, to hold on and to accept it as emunah, to accept that there's a makif, what's beyond me, and to accept it by believing in it, even though I can't understand it. And by that, by waiting, by being cooked until I'm ready, I'm ripened to receive the makif, that's the test. Am I going to do that? Or, no, I have to understand everything. Everything has to be internalized. And I reach now a level of intellect that it's beyond me, so I'm going to force my way to understand it in life. And it has to be rational. And if not, I'm going to go crazy, I'm going to go nuts, I'm going to blow up and whatever. That's the test. Now Rabbi Nachman teaches something unbelievable. A person's bounty in life, whether physical, financial sustenance, or all the spiritual levels of your sustenance, comes mainly from your proper acceptance of what's called these makifim. These are very deep concepts, but they're amazing because they're down to earth. It's unbelievable, these ideas. How you relate to a situation in life where you don't understand what's happening, you have no idea what Hashem is trying to tell you, and you go nuts and go frantic because you don't know what to do, and you have an intellectual blockage, and you can't turn to emunah because you're an intellectual being. I'm a ben adam. I'm a human being, which his definition is not. My goal is to understand. So now, am I going to accept the block or not? This test of properly accepting the makif by waiting and just holding on in faith until I can understand it, because the definition of faith basically is where the intellect stops, that's where faith begins. For example, like they say in like psychology, whatever, the first 101, you don't need faith to believe that this table exists. You feel it. I can feel the table. It's not a problem. Faith starts where the da'at, where the wisdom stops. At that point, that's where you need faith. Where I can't understand, I have to now throw myself on blind emunah until I'm ready that it becomes internalized, and then something else in life will become the next makif, the next surrounding level of intellect. So Rabbi Nachman teaches that one's whole sustenance in life comes from that trick, that test of accepting the blind faith situations in life properly. By accepting them properly, by saying, I don't know, and I throw myself onto emunah. By doing that and saying, what? You know what? I don't know, Hashem, what? I don't know what you want from me, I don't know what you want, and I'm holding on, and I'm asking you, and I'm holding on in faith. And by the way, that extension of faith is, believe it or not, one's desire. The concept of ratzon, yearning, and desire is unexplainable. It's also in the level, in the domain of faith. So an extension of an expression of a person's faith is his yearning for holiness. I want to reach this level, but I can't, I'm not ready yet. I can't understand it. So in the meantime, I believe in it, and I yearn for these next levels. Even though they're not with me yet, I have this expression of what's called ratzon, he'arat haratzon, the lighting of the desire, to connect to what's waiting for me in life. I have no idea what's there. I am given a taste of it. I have no idea how to deal with the situation. All I can do at this moment is to cling through yearning to Hashem, asking Him, what do you want from Hashem? Ultimately, Hashem, I just want to come closer to you, but I have no idea how to deal with this present situation that you're throwing me into. I don't know how to make a clear decision. My head is so mumbled and jumbled. It's only faith coupled with the byproduct of faith, which is ratzon, desire. And Rabbi Nachman teaches that this desire is the source of all one's wealth and physical sustenance and spiritual sustenance. All this is hinted to in the verse we say every day, 3 times a day in Ashrei, Poteach et yadecha, umasbiya lechol chai, Ratzon. Where you have to have in mind when saying those words, Potech Hashem, you open up your hands. Hashem, you open your hands to us, and you give your saveh, you give satiation to all living. What do you give? Ratzon. In other words, the hands, the idea of a hand is something phenomenal. What's the idea of a hand? Hand, when people talk sometimes, when a teacher talks, I'm not saying myself because I'm not a teacher, I'm just giving over. But when you see, there's an advantage of going to a class, a lecture, or a Torah discourse, where you see the teacher as opposed to just listening audio. Why? There's certain things that a teacher expresses clearly with speech, but there's certain parts that you can get only with the movements of the hand. He wants to say something, but he can't say it fully without the expression of the hands adding to it. So the hands give over that part which can't be expressed clearly. So the clear expression that your teacher is giving over is like pnimi, is something which is clear, it can be internalized. But the part of the hand movement, sometimes that a gesture that a teacher gives, he doesn't say something explicitly, but with a movement of the hands, he hints to what he's trying to get to. And he can't express it clearly in words, but by adding the hand movements, it adds that dimension. You got what he's trying to say, even though it's not clearly expressed in words, like on writing in a book. But by the hand movements, I got it. I got what he's trying to say, even though I don't get it fully intellectually. But I got the picture. I got the idea. I believe in what he's trying to say. I understand the picture, even though I don't really understand it. I have the emunah to accept because of the movements of the gestures of the hand. So these are two concepts. Again, when the teacher is teaching, there's what's explicit and what's gestured in hint format. So now, poteach et yadecha, Hashem, you open up your hands. In other words, the movements of the hands, which indicate the hints, which indicate it's an allusion to what's called makif, the level of intellect which is beyond me. It can only be hinted to me, and I have to accept it with faith and with silence to believe in the idea, and not to intellectually, explicitly have it explained clearly. But I believe in it, I'm accepting it through a hint gesture. So Hashem, through opening the hands, in other words, giving me situations in life which correspond to the hand gestures of a teacher, which require me to just believe and to have that yearning for the next level, to keep me holding on that faith until I eventually internalize the next levels. So by opening up the hands, and in that word meaning that Hashem is giving sustenance to the world. Hashem, what's the pshat of that word of King David in Ashrei? Poteach et yadecha, Hashem, you open up your hands, and it's to give abundance. And by doing that, umasbiya lechol chai ratzon, and you give satiation to all living, ratzon, desire, in desire. But in our context, it's through Hashem opening the hands which reveal the levels in life which are hints, gestures, makif, which are beyond my level, and I have to accept through faith. Through that, masbiya lechol chai ratzon. Hashem gives satiation to the world through the ratzon, the desire generated from the hints in life. That is the key for all satiation, all blessing in life. Physically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, health-wise, every level, it comes from that. To explain this idea better, there's a little parable that Rabbi Nachman gives. There was a man who was starving, he wanted to eat. And he was traveling in a forest, and he saw two houses. And he came into the first house and says, please, I'm starving. If you have any work for me to do, I'll work for you. And if you can give me wages, if I can have a meal, I'm really hungry. So the man said, no problem, come to my backyard. He showed him tons of trees. I need somebody today to cut down 20 trees here. I see that you're willing to do it. Here, I have a job for you. So the man was hungry, but he was still had force. He was able to work. So he started with the axe cutting down the trees. He cut down 20 trees. So after cutting down the 20 trees, okay, where's my pay? He said, no problem, go to the next house. There's a nice, hot, healthy, delicious, sumptuous meal waiting for you. So he went to the next house, he comes to the table, he gets the meal, and it wasn't as good as he thought. What is this? So he complained to the guy putting the food on the table, excuse me, I worked so hard for a good meal, and you give me like just porridge? What is this stuff? I worked hard for the meal. He said, excuse me, you worked for this meal? He said, yes, the guy in the other house over here, he told me to cut down the tree and my pay is the meal. He said, you got it all wrong. You worked for free and you're eating for free. Everything is for free. You're working not for your wage, you're working for another reason, and you're eating also for another reason. When you're eating, what you're getting is also for free. In other words, what you invest in trying to gain a living, for example, that's not going to determine the blessing coming to you. Something else in life is going to determine it. And what's that? These situations of Hashem opening up the hands, in other words, sending you in life the hints. Hands also smack a person, right? With the darkness. Now we said the person has a lot of light, everything is clear, and he's given a patch. I'm faced with a dilemma, a scary situation, I can't figure it out. So the hands also give a patch. Like also you cover a person's eyes with his hands, and also a push. With the hands, we cause the obstacle, we cause the prevention that a person cannot understand. Hashem opens up these hands, and by people accepting them, through that is the satiation. The satiation comes because it induces this desire of people. They have obstacles, but I want Hashem. I want to be a good Jew. Why do I need money? So I can make Shabbat Hashem. You think I need money for myself? I need money in order to send my kids to Torah education. I need money in order to do marriages. I need money to buy tefillin. I for mitzvot Hashem, for your will. So the will generated by the hands, causing obstacles, causing that there's no understanding. I can't figure out what Hashem is trying to tell me. I can only accept with faith by the hands because of the hands. The faith, the yearning generated by that is umasbia. That gives the satiation in the world. So with all that, we can see something amazing in the parsha. It says in the parsha yesterday where we read that after Edom refused to let the Jews pass through their land, and it would have made, after 40 years in the desert, that the Jews go right straight, because the land of Edom was located directly under Eretz Yisrael. The Jews were in the desert, Sinai Desert. Okay, so here's Sinai Desert, here's Egypt, Sinai Desert, here's Edom, and here's Eretz Yisrael, which is called the land of Canaan. The Jews would go straight through Edom into Eretz Yisrael from the south. So they asked, let us pass through your land to make it easy for us, that's all we want. Edom didn't let it. No way. Please, no, and they came out with their sword. You know, you coming with your power that you know how to pray, you Jewish people. We're coming with the sword which we inherited from Esau, our ancestor. So the Jews, in order to go around Edom, they had to first go down, because the land wasn't just like this. It was stretched and then going downwards. So that the Jews had to go back down towards the direction of the Red Sea, and then turn eastward to go past the land of Moab and Ammon, to get to the land of Sichon and Og, which are over here, on this side of the Jordan River. So as soon as the Jews went backwards, Rashi says, the verse says, that their nefesh, they became fed up, the Jews. And Rashi explains, oh, here we go back towards the Red Sea, but towards Egypt, the direction of Egypt. Again, Hashem is playing games with us. Just like He played games with our ancestors and threw them back into the desert and then killed them. They all died in the desert. We're now the same fate. In other words, impatience due to a lack of faith in accepting the makif, the situation which they were being tested to accept that Hashem is just preparing them to go down in order to make a right. But no, they thought they're going down. Oh no, here I go again. Everything I do is futile. There's no purpose in my waiting. We're here 40 years waiting to enter the land. Enough of this. They just couldn't handle it anymore. Why? Because this generation was called the Dor De'ah, the generation of Da'at, of wisdom. Everything they had as a teacher, Moshe Rabbeinu. You can imagine having Moshe Rabbeinu as a teacher, the level of intellect that was infusing in the Jews. So they were faced with this test, and it was a major test for them. Because, don't forget, they were being built up with excitement through Moshe Rabbeinu of the greatness of the Holy Land. So what happens when a person is yearning for something, and they keep on preventing him from getting it? So the yearning is intensified, but also the test of impatience due to a blemish in accepting the situation, because of throwing myself to emunah and ratzon, that's a hard test. But that Hashem wanted to, in order to let the Jews go into Israel, Eretz Yisrael, cleanly and in a proper way, He threw them in this test in order to give them a makif, to give them a level beyond their intellect, and they should accept it through faith and in desire. But no, Nefesh, they're in the derech, and it says they're on the, I forgot the exact wording in the verse, I can have a chumash, I'll see it afterwards, but it says that because of the toil of going backwards towards Egypt, the Jews were fed up, and then at that point, they started to slander Hashem. It says, Vaydaber Belokim, over Moshe, they slandered Hashem, and Moshe, and also they slandered the manna. This Rashi brings down, the Midrash explains that this is the part also. They slandered, if you look in the parsha, they slandered Hashem and Moshe. Why did you bring us out to die in the desert? Right? It says that they slandered God and Moses. And Rashi brings out something scary. Rashi says they equated servant to master. In other words, they made Moshe equal to Hashem. They said, why did you Hashem and you Moshe bring us out? As opposed to, why did you Hashem, through Moshe your servant, take us out? They made a big blemish in that they equated Hashem, Moshe to Hashem, because of the severity of the situation, the test they were being tested of Emunah, and they couldn't because they were they were people of knowledge, so they crashed all the way, and they hushvu eved lekono, a servant to the master, and also they spoke against the manna. Manna in the morning, manna at night, and they started, Rashi says, could it be a person is eating and nothing comes out because they didn't go to the bathroom ever? When eating the manna, there was no waste matter. It was totally absorbed. Rav Menachem Mendel of Rimenov, he says something amazing about the manna. The manna, when they put it in their mouth, it didn't go down the esophagus, which is the food pipe. It went down the kaneh, the windpipe. Unbelievable. Even though the food was an actual food, as the manna was so illogical, just emunah food. As soon as the Jews put it in their mouth, they tasted whatever they wanted. Chocolate, sundaes, meat, roast, shawarma, schnitzel, falafel, whatever they wanted. They tasted whatever, but as soon as they put it in their mouth, the food melted and went down the windpipe, and then passing by, this is Rabbi Nachman Mendel of Rimenov explains, when the windpipe passes the area, because both pipes pass by the area of the heart is here, both pipes pass next to the heart, and when the manna became like oxygenated food in the form of like an air type of food going down the windpipe, as soon as it passed by the area of the heart, it would protrude the walls of the windpipe and go straight into the heart and deliver exact amount of food needed for the body. So there was no going into the stomach, and therefore there was no waste matter. That's why, because it went straight from the windpipe to the heart. Unbelievable. So their argument was, again, irrational. How could it be that a human being is just eating and not blow up? That was Rashi says that. Could it be that Yelud Isha, a human being, eats and he doesn't go to the bathroom, so he's going to blow up eventually? So you see, all their arguments were, the test was they failed the test of where emunah was required, to believe in the manna, to believe in their going backwards was for the sake of making a right, passing Moab to go up. They wanted to understand everything rationally. Again, we're going back to Egypt, towards the direction of Egypt. Here, we're finished, because rationally they couldn't accept, they couldn't grab it, they couldn't gechapt it, they couldn't grasp it. And then they decided to throw it on the manna. Why was it called manna? Because it was called ma. They didn't know what it was. They didn't know how to call it. It's called ma. What's ma? Ma is what the person who's faced with a dark situation where there's no intellect, he says. Who says what? When does the person say what? When there's no knowledge, when I don't know. When do I say what? What or where or when? When do I say a question like what? When I don't know. Like we said in the beginning, that the people who are high, they have to be given a level of awareness of darkness, which causes them to say ma. Like the Zohar says, ma chamita, what did you see? You're still very far from Hashem. Even though they have a lot of accomplishment, and there's a lot of light generated from what they're doing and learning and understanding and contemplating, we show the opposite. We give them the smack in order to give them that darkness to push them to go forward. So it's called ma. The manna is called manna because it's made up of two words. Ma, nun. Manna, the ma, the mem by itself, we add a hey to it. Or we take the hey after the nun, put it with the mem, so it's ma, which is what? Nun. Nun means the 50th gate, which is the highest possible level, which we coin that which is beyond us, we call that the 50th gate also, the 50th level. So manna was food which emanated from ratzon, from no intellect, just emunah. That's the manna. And all of the reason why we read every year the story of the manna is to remind us that you're working for free and you're eating for free. Hashem is sustaining you not because you own a multi-conglomerate business with internet connections all over the world and everything. You have online sales and you're doing great. That's not why you're getting money. That's for something else. That's to rectify the sin of Adam and Eve. You're working with the sweat of your brow. That's for something else. When you're getting fuel and sustenance, that's only from the situations in life where you don't know and you have faith. And the people who don't have faith in the world, like the wicked people, they're living off for free. Those tzaddikim who are running on faith, these people are strong enough to bring down sustenance to them and to the entire world. And sometimes like Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa, for themselves nothing, but for the world, yes. They're not taking anything else for themselves, but for the world they're giving them the sustenance. It's coming in the merit of the tzaddikim, that's it. In the merit of these big people who were able to activate the emunah, the ratzon, that's what's bringing down the sustenance. So the Jews, they failed the test. In that, they blemished with their intellect. They wanted to intellectually understand the manna. Like Rashi says, their intellectual arguments. We're eating and it's not coming out. What is this? And all we see is manna day, manna night. And then also, Hashem is pushing us back towards Egypt. We're going to die in the desert. All the rationale where they were required emunah in order to push their ratzon. So this was the blemish, and it was so severe that they lost track. And they equated Moshe to Hashem. Even though you have, the Ben Ish Chai brings down the Gemara, it's a Gemara in Sanhedrin, Daf Kuf Yud. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says like this, that there's two blemishes in idol worship. There's someone who's a total atheist, he doesn't believe Chas Shalom at all in Hashem. And there's also what's called Meshatef Shem Shamayim V'Davar Echer. Someone who believes in Hashem, but with something else, like the blemish of the golden calf. They believed in Hashem, but also they believed in an intermediary called the golden calf. So that's forbidden. So they made Moshe as the intermediary. So the Ben Ish Chai, in his commentary called Ben Yoyadai, he asks a good question. We have many verses where Hashem, he equates his honor with the honor of tzaddikim. Like the famous verse we say every day, Vayaminu b'Hashem u'Moshe avdo. And the Jews believed in Hashem and Moshe his servant. What's going on? Why don't you say that also? That it's a blemish in belief in Hashem by this verse saying that the Jews believed in Hashem and Moshe his servant. So he answers very nicely the Ben Ish Chai. He says because the verse already says Moshe as his servant, so I won't get fooled into believing that Moshe is equated to Hashem. Because the verse itself says already Moshe his servant. But here in the parsha of the Manna, they attributed everything towards Hashem and Moshe directly. And that's the problem there. And they lost it. In other words, they lost balance and attacked like that because they couldn't pass the test of emunah ratzon. They wanted to rely on their intellect. What's going on here? We can't handle this. We're being thrown to the desert again, and we can't. And then they threw it immediately. As soon as they failed the test of the traveling in the desert, they threw their arguments on the manna, because the whole essence of the manna, which is their sustenance, is what? Which means it's requiring emunah ratzon, which they didn't have. So automatically, even though they're two separate items, they're arguing against being thrown back into the desert, and the manna is a separate item, not connected. But because they failed this tiny test of intellectual pursuit versus emunah ratzon, so automatically it had repercussions on the manna, which the whole essence of the manna is which is only emunah ratzon. So that's why automatically they also argued against the manna in this test of being pushed back to the desert. Amazing. So what comes out of all this? That the tzaddik, in his giving da'at to his students and his children, both categories, he does his best to give it in a way that a person can receive the da'at properly with the blinkers, with the hands. In other words, the tzaddik has a way of revealing teachings of Torah that in the teachings itself, it gives the person the boost of emunah. So that when a person is faced with a test, he can easily, because he's been given to the teachings emunah, which is in other words to know that I don't know, to know that I don't understand, it's only emunah. So that gives them the koach, the strength to handle the test. So the problem with us is that the Yetzer Hara does very much work to conceal from people the true tzaddikim. There was a Moshe Rabbeinu back then, and he faced tremendous opposition from Korach, from all the Datan Aviram, from all the people who were opposed, and all this opposition served to weaken the people's belief in Moshe Rabbeinu. And when that's weakened, even if Moshe Rabbeinu is teaching them, it doesn't sink in properly. And so too in every generation, we have this test to seek out the true leaders who correspond to Moshe Rabbeinu, and even once we find them, to make sure our belief in them and their teachings is 100%, so that when they reveal their da'at to me, I receive it in the format that it contains this emunah, so when I'm faced with situations which require emunah, I'm able to hold on to the test. So we should be zocheh b'ezrat Hashem to find these leaders. This is one of the main things we cry over in the 3 weeks coming up on the destruction of the temple. The rabbis teach, the Gemara teaches, that the death of tzaddikim is twice as severe as the destruction of the temple. We're here mourning over the temple on Israel for 2,000 years, almost 2,000 years now. We're crying over the temple, and here is a simple teaching that, believe it or not, the concealment of tzaddikim is even worse than the destruction of the temple. Why? Because both serve the same purpose. Just like the temple was able to atone for people's sins, because this concept of pnimi and makif, what's internal and what's not internalized, was in the Beit HaMikdash. The idea that they say that elyonim lemata, tachtonim lemala, that the temple served to bring the upper worlds down to this world, and to bring, by a physical animal sacrifice, the lower existence up to and then burning it on the altar and converting it into smoke which went up towards Hashem, and Hashem calls it a riach nichoach. It's a pleasant smelling fragrance for Hashem, which is taking what's low, lemala, and that means joining of the two, like we said, where the student is given the light instead of the darkness, and the people on top, the banim, the sons, are given darkness instead of the light. That existed in the temple, and so too the tzaddikim in their teaching, they're able, through their compassion, to reveal teachings in that way also. So there's a common denominator between tzaddikim and the purpose of the temple, and both serve to atone for sins, because the only reason why a person sins in the first place is because of a lack of da'at. En adam over avera, elam ken nichnas beruach shtur. A person only sins and does something wrong in life only if there's a lack of da'at. Who's responsible then? That I didn't work hard enough to receive da'at. That let room that now stupidity enters my head and guides me to make stupid decisions. Oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to invest in this thing, and not that, on my own da'at, as opposed to receiving all my da'at from the tzaddikim, and its repercussion in every area of life. Should I marry this woman? Should I move to Yerushalayim? Should I do all these things, which are the byproducts of the da'at that I received from the tzaddikim? By not getting this da'at, I'm considered what's called the shoite, an idiot. And that causes a person to sin. And when a Jew falls to the category of sin, he can't handle it. And that's the result of this of what happens after sin, is the difficult situations in life which are unfaceable, which I can't handle, dead-end situations. So what to do to fix it? To get da'at again, ASAP. If I get da'at in my situation, I can reverse everything totally. But in order to get da'at, I need the tzaddikim. And I need the Holy Temple. So basically, these 3 weeks coming up, it's to cry over two things. Our Holy Temple, which is for Am Yisrael as a whole, but also that Hashem should reveal to me who are these true tzaddikim today, who reveal this da'at, which was with the job of the Beit HaMikdash. We should be zocheh to find these tzaddikim and have the temple built, and the tzaddikim with Melech HaMashiach at their top, revealed to us, to give us the true da'at and to fulfill the mission of this existence in this creation. Everything's Hashem. And yet, He wants Avita Tehila Mikutze Afar, Mikutze Chomer, Migush Afar. As great as Hashem is, He wants to be praised from the mounds of physicality, of corporality, of Kutze Chomer, of pieces of materialism, of physical existence in this low world. Hashem wants to be recognized dafka from here.
Right.
Da'at kanita machsarta. A person has to work to acquire da'at. In other words, to look at the source of nachon. We have to be grounded. You have to do yishtadu, what it's called. But to realize that it's a byproduct. That I have to strive for what's the cause really for all the blessing in the world, which is this da'at.
Right.
Which generates this emunah and right on.
It seems that some people, though, are so connected to the materialism that their complete relationship with God is through a material world.
Right.
and God works with them with tzedakah and
Right.
hospitality or whatever they're,
Right.
whatever
You
they're,
have people like that. Right.
whatever.
Sometimes the robber doesn't have to be external. The robber
It comes from the
from within.
He's Amalek within. We call it.
You're the robber of
Right.
yourself.
Right.
Yeah,
You're-
people have a
you're-
loser mentality sometimes.
You know, so
It's a
you're
mentality, exactly.
you're robbing yourself.
You're causing your own robbing
So you're worried about someone else stealing from you.
when you yourself are the one who's doing it.
Yeah.
Right. So what to do is to detach from you, to get someone else to take over, to allow higher levels to come in.
People,
This
you
is the
know,
manigut. This is a leader. The classic example of a Jewish leader is Moshe Rabbeinu, and he's called like a shepherd to his flock. We always hear this analogy that the tzaddikim, the leaders, are called shepherds, and Am Yisrael are like sheep. So go all the way with the analogy. Let's go on. What's the idea? If Am Yisrael are compared like sheep, and then the leader, like Moses, is like a shepherd, so there's worlds apart a difference between Am Yisrael, which are an animal, they're a sheep, and then the shepherd is a human being. To show you there's a big difference between a tzaddik, a leader, and Am Yisrael. Am Yisrael is compared to sheep, and the shepherd is not a sheep also. He's a shepherd, he's a human being. Now, what's the advantage of the shepherd? He stands erect, as opposed to the sheep that they're on all four, and they graze wherever the shepherd takes them. So now the shepherd, what does that mean? He can see, by being erect, where to graze his flock, where to direct them. Let's make a left, let's make a right. No, here, there's no grass over here. And who's giving the grass? Hashem. Who's giving the food, the sustenance? Hashem. But the tzaddik is the one to guide Am Yisrael where to get their sustenance. He's compassionate to show where the direction is. And this is a true compassionate leader. This is a true leader, where he knows how to guide a person. There's grass. Invest in here. You, like you're saying, for example, you have to work 10 hours a day because he knows that this is where the grass is for this person. But the other guy, he won't tell him to work 10 hours a day. He says, you need to work 2 hours a day maybe.
so they got to go to yeshiva. And these kids are going to starve.
Because the shepherd sees where the grass is for each sheep. He has this type of sheep, he has goats, he has cows, he knows where to put each one, where to graze, where there's bigger roots, where there's shorter roots, where there's no grass at all. This is the idea of a true shepherd. He knows how to give the right morsel. For example, a baby 4 days old, you don't give them adult food. That's achzariyut, that's rahmanut. A baby 4 days, he needs milk. As opposed to an older child, an adult, he needs actual food. Milk won't sustain him, it's not enough. So too, the tzaddikim, they know how to give each person, a true leader, knows how to exercise his rahmanut, his compassion, to know how much to give and to in what level to each person according to what they need. And where it's not, and when not to have rahmanut. For example, a murderer or a killer or a robber, where it's forbidden to have compassion because it's going to make it even worse. God forbid. There's no compassion here.
We're living in an amazing time, you know.
This is the birth of Mashiach.
It's
The
just
whole world was waiting for this time.
right. But it's